commuting to work because they cannot afford to live in the cities in which they provide goods and services. We're talking about the working poor and their children living out of cars and shelters. We judge this to be wrong. And so we do judge, not to condemn, but to bring about justice. And why apocalyptic justice? See, apocalypse means to reveal, literally to uncover, to show what's underneath. And in this case, to reveal the powers of injustice which rage in our world. Is this apocalypse the end of the world? Of course not. But this little apocalypse is the beginning of the end. The end of the kind of world where youth behind bars and family behind on rent are no more in our world. No more in Volusia County. Are we going to see the end of the world tonight? No. But we are going to have our own little apocalypse right now in this room. Because the way that things have been does not have to be the way things remain. So we're going to have our own little apocalypse revealing youth criminalization in Volusia County tonight. We're going to have our own little apocalypse revealing the need for affordable housing in Volusia County. I'm hearing amens back here. Is there any out there? Now I feel you backing away, and I want to say don't be afraid. Apocalypse actually is meant not to bring fear to those in churches, but to bring hope and resolve to those in crisis. And make no mistake, friends, we are in crisis. Despite great schools, charter schools, new high-end rental developments for those with the luxury of affording them, despite these assurances of peace, we are in crisis. And luckily for us, apocalypse is meant for crisis. It's meant to communicate that even amidst the oppressive and unjust systems of empire and violence, that dominant powers are not ultimate powers. Try to say that with me. Dominant powers are not ultimate powers. Youth incrimination and incarceration seem to be dominant powers, manifest in punitive practices and racially correlated youth criminalization that we call the school-to-prison pipeline. But let me assure you, we intend for our little apocalypse tonight to reveal that injustice, because the dominant powers of systemic racism and incriminating our children are not ultimate powers. The tide is shifting on youth criminal justice. There's movement nationally when a decade ago this wasn't even in our vocabulary. I know of a single mother who's struggling with the behavioral issues of her young son and lacks the support from her school, and she's terrified about what might happen criminally to a second grader. My 7-year-old daughter, June, my 4-year-old son, Huck, we got a shout out from them when I stepped up. You guys out there? Yes. June has been, and I hate to tattle on you, baby girl, June has been caught drawing on her bedspread. Drawing with permanent marker on an American Girl doll handed down from her grandmother, drawing on the upholstery of our cars. June is vibrant, creative, precocious, and sweet. She is an incredibly good kid. She's loved by her family, her peers, surrounded by friends, adored by her teachers. But she gets distracted, and from time to time she likes to get creative on property that does not necessarily belong to her. You may have heard of this. She's a kid. And I don't want to dismiss this and say it's okay. Vandalization should not be dismissed. Simply good kids will be kids. But last year, 98 5 to 12-year-olds were arrested in Volusia County. Not grounded, not time out, not a trip to the principal's office, not even detention, arrested. For misdemeanor crimes, let me pull an example out of thin air, like drawing on a school desk. But these dominant powers are not ultimate powers. So with affordable housing, the powers that keep this out of reach seem to be dominant powers, manifest in impossible decisions between shelter and food and life-saving medication. But let me assure you, we intend for our little apocalypse to reveal this injustice. Because the dominant powers which perpetuate unjust and unaffordable housing are not ultimate powers. How about the young mother whose situation has recently changed and can no longer afford her mortgage, but has found that going to try to find a much smaller place to rent is more expensive? This is not someone taking advantage of the system. This is a master's educated professional hospital administrator who overworks to make ends meet and can't make ends meet. This is not some imagined class of people. This is us. These are members of my congregation. These are people our representatives serve. Regardless of how things seem, and you can say it with me if you want to, dominant powers are not ultimate powers. This unending, this revealing of injustice is a theme in all the world's great traditions who have a keen eye on justice. As Reverend Caleb White puts it, apocalypse is in the heart and on the lips of every poet and prophet who has ever changed the world. Speaking of poets and prophets, we heard from Frederick Douglass, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. In a word, we can't have justice without judgment, and we can't have judgment without apocalypse. This is our struggle. It is our work to reveal the injustice in our county and to make clear that we have judged it to be unacceptable, inhumane, and that we demand our representatives act. We have a problem. We're given assurances of peace, but there is no peace. Can there be peace in our county when hundreds of children are arrested and their futures tarnished for arbitrary reasons? Can we?
No.
I didn't think so. Will our congregation sit on the sidelines as the most vulnerable in our cities are systematically priced out of their neighborhoods?
No.
While folks in our congregations are having to decide between paying rent or buying medication?
No.
Will we give assurances of peace while children with disabilities, children of color, in Volusia County schools continue to be disproportionately barred from classrooms to out-of-school suspension?
No.
The struggle cannot be won if we are placated by assurances of peace, but we are not. If we were, we would have stayed home tonight, and trust me, Netflix is tempting. Perhaps you've heard that justice is what love looks like with work boots on. As I stare out at 1,800 pairs of work boots, I think all we have left to do is lace up. This work of apocalyptic justice in the face of empty assurances of peace is our struggle tonight. We're calling for an apocalypse that reveals the injustice of youth criminalization and puts an end to arresting our kids for childish behaviors. An apocalypse that reveals the injustice of unaffordable housing and puts an end to working 40 hours a week plus overtime plus a side hustle and still having no place to lay your head, raise your kids, or see a future. And it's in the light of this apocalyptic revealing that the line of justice has been drawn. The question for us tonight is, will we hold that line? Tonight we mean to inaugurate this apocalypse because this is what God desires for us and from us, to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. And so we pray these things as we act upon these things in all the holy names of God, and everyone who believed that faith could move mountains said, Amen.